Well, I know that this is the biggest challenge that the education community has ever had. In 100 years, we've not had to experience going back to school in September during a global pandemic. And I know there's anxiety within the workforce, within the parent community, and even with some children. Of course, this is a very stressful time. But I'm confident that the steering group, which consists of administrators, vice principals, principals, teachers, support workers, parents, trustees, are all working to focus on making sure that we can get this right. And the first few days of the year of school, as you all remember from your own experience or the experience of your children, is always a time of flux. And I believe that going into this September, we need to be more flexible than ever before. And I know that community leaders in the education sector will be focused on that, making sure that they're doing everything that they can to make sure children are safe, the people that work in schools are safe. And I'm confident that as we evolve through the plan into September, October, and into November, and then into the spring, it will be different when we finish than it was when we started. But we need, as with every journey, we need to take that first step. And I'm confident that the time frame that the ministers put in place with stakeholders is going to be effective. Remembering, of course, that every school is different, every community is different, and that's why we need to leave those decisions at the end of the day to the people in classrooms, to the people in the schools of British Columbia. Well, certainly, Ian, thanks for the question. And I think the key part of that question is as things develop. We know that parents, students, teachers want to get back in the classroom. We also know that parents, students, and teachers are anxious about that. I have family members. My daughter-in-law is a teacher here in British Columbia. My son is a teacher in another jurisdiction. So I understand directly how educators feel. And as a parent, I understand the anxiety that other parents are feeling. But I also know that we need to focus on getting back to as near to normal as we possibly can. And our education system involves hundreds of thousands of people, and we need to find a way for all of that to happen in a safe manner. And that's what we're focused on. And we've had unprecedented discussions with all of the stakeholders. We'll continue to do that. People will disagree. There's no question about that. But the vast majority of people want to make sure we get this right. And if it takes a few more days, so be it. But today, we're focused on starting the school year as we had planned, making sure that we have provisions in place to protect workers, to protect children, and to make sure we get as safe a start as possible.
Do you have a follow-up, Ian?
Yes, I do. Premier, can parents expect that a portion, perhaps a significant portion, of their children's school term will be spent online and not in the classroom?
That's going to vary from school to school, from district to district. We know that we have a 1-month trial run with a hybrid of in-class instruction as well as virtual instruction. And I think we're going to see a lot of that throughout the school year, certainly at the senior levels. When it comes to primary education, that's a different kettle of fish. We need to address a whole bunch of issues that have emerged that we've become aware of because of the pandemic. Connectivity in rural British Columbia is not adequate to meet the challenges of out-of-class instruction or virtual instruction. That's had an impact on the economy as well. So we're putting in place a plan to connect British Columbians in every part of the province as fast as we possibly can. We had a $50 million investment ready to go on that, or underway rather, and we need to up that to make sure that we're connecting British Columbians wherever they may live, particularly when it comes to ensuring that our children have access to educators, whether it be in a classroom or via new technologies. Well, that we have seen a spike in cases. Minister Dix can speak to that. We had anticipated that. The more interactions we have within our communities, the more likelihood of transmission. That's why it's critically important to remind ourselves every day, and that's why Dr. Henry and Minister Dix are regularly available to put that message out to the public that we are far from out of the woods. We need to be vigilant. We need to practice physical distancing. We need to wear masks. I'm very gratified to see a sea of masks in front of me as we conduct this press conference. I was on BC Transit last week, riding the bus, passing out masks to people. Dr. Henry's meeting with transit officials at TransLink as well as BC Transit to talk about how we can ensure that there's more masks on buses and on SkyTrain. And I believe that we have 40-some million dollars invested in deep cleaning in our schools, as well as PPE for teachers, for kids, that will get us through the school year. I can't help with the anxiety other than to say to those parents that I hear you, I feel it, but we need to work together to get through this. And that's the only way we're going to be able to ease that anxiety, is to get back into the classroom, to make sure we're making adjustments potentially on a daily basis to ensure that kids are safe, teachers are safe, and we can get back to what will be the new normal when it comes to education in British Columbia.
Did you have a follow-up, Brianna?
I do. Could you elaborate on how much autonomy individual principals and individual school districts will have in deciding how they proceed with their own reopenings for back to school?
Well, that is probably a better question asked to Minister Fleming, who's in daily conversations with the steering group and with public health officials, and not just at the superintendent and trustee level, but right down to administrators. I do know, and I'll repeat, that every school is different, every community is different, and that autonomy exists today. Were we not in a pandemic, principals, vice principals will be making decisions on the fly about how their school operated, whether it be extracurricular activities, whether it be any host of issues that we could contemplate. What's different today, of course, is that we're in a global pandemic. What's different today is that parents and educators are anxious about the future, and I get that. But we need to start towards that future so that we can amend our behavior to make sure that kids are safe, teachers are safe, support workers are safe, and that we can bring that anxiety down over time. It's August, we're a month away, and what happens over the next 30 days is going to be critical. What happens 30 days after we open is critical as well. But we have to take that first step to get this journey started. As Minister Dix just said in response to the last question, new evidence will take us in new directions. Where we've been successful in British Columbia is that we have deferred to those who know better than we do, and British Columbians have responded very positively to that. Other jurisdictions have had a different approach to communicating how we respond as a community to this extraordinary challenge, an unprecedented challenge. And going back to class in September will be an unprecedented challenge as well. But I'm as confident as I can be, based on the information I have today, that every effort to get this right is being made. And we can draw parallels to other activities and try and bring them back into a classroom context. But I want parents to know that we would not be putting their children at risk if we thought there was an overwhelming risk. We believe that based on the work that's been done in the schools by all of the stakeholders, teachers, those that support special needs kids, those that keep our schools clean, administrators, support staff, everybody is focused on making sure that this is a success. And if there is new information as the summer progresses, as we get into the first days or weeks of the school year, we will amend and adapt. And I want to also reiterate that the issues in Saanich are not the issues in Selmo or Salmon Arm, and every community will have to respond differently. And that autonomy, which was one of the questions asked earlier, is very much there. It is in a normal circumstance. It certainly is during a pandemic.
Lisa, do you have a follow-up?
And another one about school. Parents feeling like they're between a rock and a hard place. The education minister was clear that the choices are go back to full-time in-class school. You can just keep your kids home, I guess, and wait it out, or pull those kids out of the catchment and do distance or homeschooling. And for many, this feels like no choice at all. So will there be an alteration to allow parents who either have kids who are immune compromised, someone in their family that is immune compromised, who are just not comfortable, but don't want to put their child out of the catchment and do want their kids to have some means of learning with the other students at school remotely?
A very, very good question, because as you highlight in the preamble, as I've said, every school is different, every family is different as well, and people will have to make choices in the best interest of their family unit and their community, and I respect that, as does the minister, as do all of the stakeholders in the K-12 system. working with public health officials, working with professionals in education, we're hoping to do our level best to make sure the vast majority of British Columbians are comfortable with the start of the school year. There will be those that you've identified that have obvious, legitimate concerns, and we need to be mindful of that. And I know the minister is, and will continue over the next month to hear from those British Columbians and make amendments as needed to make sure that their interests are addressed as well.